We do not feel the stone fail us. The water did. We stand today amidst the skeletal remains of Tikal and Calakmul, feeling the weight of a silence that was once a roar of 250,000 voices. And we realize that the greatest tragedy of the Maya was not a lack of ingenuity, but the terrifying success of it. We look at these soaring limestone crests, piercing the jungle canopy like the jagged teeth of a hungry god, and we recognize the hubris of a people who believed they had finally negotiated a permanent treaty with the rain. In the year 750, we would have seen a world at its absolute zenith, a landscape so densely packed with humanity that the very idea of a wild forest was a distant memory. This was a managed paradise, a sprawling network of city-states housing upwards of 15 million souls, all of them bound together by a single shimmering notion that the king was the guarantor of the clouds. We see the Chul Ahau, the Holy Lord, standing atop the pyramid, his skin adorned with jade and quetzal feathers, performing the bloodletting rituals that kept the cosmos in balance. We believed, as they did, that as long as the blood flowed from the royal vein, the sky would return the favor with water. But by the time the first cracks appeared in the earth, the notion had already become a noose. We walk through the plazas of the 8th century, and we do not see a primitive people. We see a civilization that had mastered the terrifying art of total landscape modification. There is an unbelievable truth buried in the mud of their reservoirs. The Maya had no major rivers, no mountain snowmelt, and no natural lakes in the southern lowlands. They built a superpower on nothing but captured raindrops. We look down at the massive paving stones of the city centers and realize they were designed as giant funnels, tilted with mathematical precision to channel every stray drop of seasonal rain into massive lime-lined cisterns. We see the brilliance of the Bajo system, where we turned seasonal swamps into permanent gardens of maize and beans. But as we look closer, we see the cost of this brilliance. To feed 15 million people, we had to strip the forest bare. We see the smoke rising from 1,000 kilns, burning the hardwood of the jungle at a frantic pace just to create the lime plaster that coated our temples and floors. For a single large building, we decimated miles of old-growth forest. We were inadvertently baking our own world, stripping away the very trees that recycled moisture back into the atmosphere, creating a local heat island that pushed the clouds just a little further out of reach. We were a nation that had outgrown its own ecology, and we were doing it in the name of divine order. The first decade of the drought is not a sudden scream, but a low, vibrating anxiety that we feel in the soles of our feet. The rains of 760 arrive late, and when they do, they are thin and erratic. We stand in the fields of the Piten and watch the maize stalks wither before they can even silk. We look at the faces of the farmers, men and women who have spent generations perfecting the timing of the planting, now staring at a sky that has turned into a hard, polished bowl of blue. The notion of the king's divinity begins to fray at the edges. We watch the Ahau ascend the stairs of the great jaguar temple with more desperation now, the rituals becoming more frequent, the sacrifices more grisly. If the water does not come, it is not just a meteorological failure, it is a moral one. It means the king has lost his connection to the Xibalba, the underworld, and the gods have turned their faces away. We see the tension rising between the borders of the city-states. Tikal eyes the reservoirs of Caracol. Dos Pilas looks toward the trade routes of the Pasión River. As the water levels in the stone tanks drop,
The civility of 1,000 years begins to evaporate with it. We are witnessing the moment a nation's soul begins to shrink to the size of its survival instinct. By the turn of the 9th century, the drought is no longer an event, it is the new architecture of our lives. We feel the dust in our throats, a fine limestone grit that seems to coat everything, our food, our clothes, the very air in the royal courts. The birds have stopped singing in the scorched outskirts. We see the internal collapse starting from the bottom up. The peasantry, the backbone of the empire, begins to realize that the great notion is a lie. If the king cannot bring the maize, why should we bring the maize? Why should we haul the massive stones for his funerary monument? We see the first signs of abandonment in the smaller hamlets. People are simply walking away, drifting toward the coasts or the highland lakes, leaving behind the grand experiments of the central lowlands. But the kings do not pivot, they do not adapt. Instead, they double down on the only logic they know: war. We see the construction of defensive walls thrown up in a panic across the plazas of Aguateca. We see the beautiful carved lintels of palaces being torn down to build barricades. We are watching a civilization turn inward, devouring itself in a frantic search for someone to blame for the dry sky.
We stand in the year 830, and the heat is a physical weight. The great hiatus has become a permanent silence. In the city of Confront, we find the most haunting evidence of the breaking point. We see the royal palace, a sprawling masterpiece of stonework, and near its entrance, we find the bodies of the entire court, 31 men, women, and children, still wearing their jade jewelry, executed and dumped into a ritual cistern. It is the death of the notion. The people did not just leave, they rose up and slaughtered the living symbols of their failed ideology. We see the once manicured gardens of the elite being reclaimed by thorny scrub. The trade routes that connected the Caribbean to the Gulf have fallen silent. We look at the borders of these kingdoms, once so fiercely defended, and find they no longer exist. There is only the forest, encroaching inch by inch, its roots prying apart the mortar of the temples. The nation has died because it could not imagine a world where the king was not a god and the god was not the rain. The final phase of the collapse is a slow, agonizing dissolution that lasts decades. We follow the remnants of the population as they huddle around the last remaining water sources, deep cenotes, or the few permanent rivers that haven't turned to stagnant mud. We see the loss of literacy, the loss of the long count calendar, the loss of the very history we are now trying to piece together. The we that was the Maya Empire has splintered into 1,000 me's, struggling for a handful of roots and bitter berries. We walk through the empty halls of Palenque and hear only the wind whistling through the roof combs. There is no grand finale, no cinematic ending, just the sound of a people quietly giving up on a dream that had turned into a nightmare. We see the last dated stela carved in 909, a lonely marker of a time that no longer had anyone to keep it. We realize that the drought did not just kill the people, it killed the idea of being a Maya. As we stand here now, looking at the vines that have strangled the sun gods and the moss that has blurred the faces of the kings, we are forced to reckon with the fragility of our own certainties. We see the ruins not as a failure of a distant, vanished people, but as a mirror. We see a society that was so successful, so complex, and so specialized that it lost the ability to be humble before the natural world. We see a people who believed their borders were eternal and their philosophy was infallible, only to find that the earth does not negotiate with human narratives. We are left with the quiet,
terrifying image of a child's footprint in the dried mud of a reservoir that would never fill again. A tiny testament to a hope that was finally exhausted. We look at the silence of the jungle, and we are forced to ask if the stories we tell ourselves about our own greatness are stripped away by a change in the wind. What remains of a nation once the notion has died?